All right, we're back. Episode 4 of Boots and Scarves. Your host with the most, Anton. My flatmate in the next room, Stefan. Our president, Jessica. Salute. Stuart, all the way from Glasgow, Scotland. How are you doing?
Good.
And my favorite YouTuber in Ottawa, Michael McCall. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm just peachy.
Oh, good. Really enjoyed your video yesterday.
Well, thank you.
And for those of you who don't know, Stefan and I started these podcasts years ago when we, were starting out as a supporters group. We've had a lot of friends come on. We try to find different people. But this one's very historical for us in the sense. One of, if not the first signing, I believe, for Atletico Ottawa, our now current club, for joining the CPL. We have our good man here, Ben Fisk. Give it up for Ben.
Cheers.
Thanks for having me, guys. Pleasure.
All right, so it's a standard, by the way, thank you everybody who submitted questions. This one was a very extensive list that I had to go through, and that's a really good problem for me, when people participate that much behind the scenes. So I really appreciate that. But today we're switching it up. Ben's on the panel with us. So we're going to hit him with a question, 2 for everyone, including him, and then 1 back for him specific, and we just follow suit. Is that cool?
Works for us.
Sounds great. Let's do it.
Okay. All right, Ben. So you're up to bat first. First question on the day is, when you got the call to join the Canadian men's national team, and by the way, that's the theme for today, is the Canadian men's national team. So, so when you got the call to join, was there one player that came to mind right away, perhaps, that you were excited to play with?
There was a couple, yeah. I think my first call up to the men's team was back in 2014, I think. At that time, there was guys such as Julian de Guzman, Tiva Hutchinson, just to name a couple who were still playing. And, those 2 in particular were guys that I grew up watching. And I think we can all agree that they've been kind of the stalwarts of Canadian footy for my generation. And so to share the pitch with those guys was pretty special. Julian as well, I had the Deportivo de La Coruña connection with. So that was really cool. He took a bit more interest in my career just because of my stop there and the mutual friends that we made in La Coruña.
Awesome. All right, and the first question for the group comes from Stefan, so I'll get him to start, and then everyone takes a turn after. So the CSA, this is a hypothetical. CSA puts you in charge for scheduling the next Canadian men's national team home match. So you're guaranteed to bring in any, countryside from under the UEFA. Who are you picking?
My first instinct was, you got to bring England in. And I'm like, wait a minute. I want that stadium sold out wearing red, Canada red, not wearing the 3 lions. So I had to think of away fans and bandwagoners. But I wanted a team that was competitive, but not one that we could just walk over. So I went with Sweden. Has enough of a draw, has enough of a Scandinavian fan base in the country, but won't outshine the Voyageurs. So did a balancing act on that one.
Good answer. Jessica?
I am going with part of my heritage, and this is a team that I would always wanted to see, and I would choose Ukraine.
That would actually be really cool.
Yeah.
Stuart.
I love how she says her heritage Ukraine and her last name is McLaren. That's
Part Irish and part Ukrainian.
My choice would be to go with Belgium. I've seen them play, and it's an incredible team. I don't think they're, like Stefan said, there wouldn't be a big team that would draw support away from Canada, but you get some amazing players that come along with it, like Lukaku, Hazard, De Bruyne. They're all phenomenal players, and for such a small nation, they play football so well. So that's who I would bring over.
Michael.
Yeah, for me, I almost went with Wales, but I actually decided to go with Scotland. For me, I'm looking at a good away crowd. I'm looking for a good away crowd where I know people are going to show up, and a potential result. I think winning on a home turf is big, so I'm going to bring someone like Belgium. So I think Scotland's one where we can at least draw and have a good game and a great crowd.
Here, Ben, you got one?
I do, yeah. I mean, one of my caps for the national team was actually against Scotland in Scotland, so that would be a cool return leg. We drew 1-1 there, so I agree with you. I think we could get a result. I'm going to take it in a little bit of a different direction for my answer, based on the assumption that we'd be playing the friendly at TD Place, and I would bring Spain over. I think, given that there's a few Atletico Madrid players amongst their ranks, that would be a cool, connection to continue to grow here in Ottawa. All the, fans can all see some top class talent that's won the World Cup, won the Euro Cup in years prior, and a lot of guys who are still in their prime. So I think that'd be a huge draw for Canadian footy fans.
All right. And the next question also coming from Stefan. Jess, I'll get you to kick this one off. So with Canada and Mexico hosting 10 matches each, and Stefan really wanted to emphasize that that's 1/8 or 12.6% of the 2026 World Cup. Do Canada and Mexico deserve to be automatically qualified for that World Cup tournament?
No, I think that they need to earn their spot like every other country out there.
Stuart?
I think they should be in the World Cup because they're hosting it, and I think that would make it a bit better. But whether they deserve it, I'm not too sure. What I'd like to see maybe happen is them be advanced a little bit further in the qualifying, instead of having to play the entire qualifying, maybe just in a playoff round. But like Stefan said, it's 12.6, very specific, % of the games. So it'd be setting a precedent, because what you're seeing is a lot of clubs for the Euro Cup, a lot of clubs want to split. So you have the one that was supposed to be the Euro 20 this year was supposed to be in the UK. So you have games in Scotland, England, Wales, and all those countries are expected to qualify. When you start doing that with the World Cup, if you start having these multiple countries hosting it, then they're all going to want to be a part of it. So I don't know whether they deserve it, but I think they probably will be and should be part of it.
Stefan?
Yeah, I'm with Ben. Not Ben. Stu on this one. Ben might be on my opinion as well. I don't know yet. But the maybe advance them into the whatever the hex is, or maybe a 2-leg playoff between Mexico and Canada to be guaranteed that other spot, and then the loser is dropped into the final round of qualifying. It's only 10 games, but it's also training pitches. Like, let's say they're going to play in New York. Well, you think they might want to just train in Montreal and then fly down to New York that night, just to away from everybody, but still in a popular city. I don't know the mentality, but yeah, at least some form of qualifying process, because the way Canada's played internationally, 8-1, yeah, I'm not.
Ben, would you like to weigh in on it?
Yeah, I think the key factor in that question is, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure 2026 they're increasing the number of teams in the World Cup to 48. So with that increase in teams, I don't think it's crazy to have 3 teams automatically qualifying. If you're hosting, I think one of the beautiful things about the World Cup is that home country, even if it's a small country that's not necessarily that competitive, they get to play on home soil against the biggest players, biggest teams in the world, and they get their home support there. So I'd be extremely disappointed if Canada wasn't involved.
And Michael.
Yeah, I'm more on. Sorry, I'm more on track with Ben there. To me, it's an absolute crime if all three countries don't get a spot in there, especially when you see Canada trying to grow the sport over here. If we have a World Cup and we're not playing, we're missing out on something huge, and it'll be super disappointing. I think what is important to point out as well is when we first got the announcement that the World Cup's coming here, I think it was someone who's in charge did say the U.S., Mexico, and Canada are all in the same boat. So it's either they all automatically qualify or they all have to go through qualification. That is something I do agree with. It's either one or the other. No team like the States should get a pass and the other two don't. I mean, we've seen it split before with was it South Korea and Japan? In Japan, I think. I could be wrong there. But
I think Spain and Portugal as well hosted a World Cup together.
Okay, so it's been done. So I don't think an extra team hurts. And like what Ben was saying, they're going to make it a bigger World Cup. So why not have an extra team?
All right. Next question specifically for Ben. So Ben, being from Canada, what was your relationship with hockey? I mean, it's such a thing, that's so embedded in our culture here, and people loving winter sports and stuff like that. So like, was it a sport that you enjoyed playing, or was it even on the radar?
Yeah, I played as a kid. I think I was 13 when I quit. I kind of had to make a choice between hockey and soccer, and obviously, which one I chose. But
I think you made a good choice.
I've always been a big hockey fan. A little bit less lately, but when I was in high school, it was kind of the Canucks glory days. Specifically the 2011 Stanley Cup run. So definitely a big Canucks fan growing up, and continue to support them now.
Cool. All right. These next questions come from Michael. So Michael, which player in history were or are you most disappointed with when they decided not to play for the men's national team?
So I'm going to go very recent, and I'm going to go with Tamori, the defender from Chelsea. When you look at Canada's team, where you have a lot of skill up front, we have a lot of big names up there, and we right now have potentially the best Canada team, or best one we've had in a long time. And I think something we're missing is a solid back end and some notable players there. We don't really have that. I think Tamori could have been that. I understood why he didn't, though. I mean, he was born in Calgary, I believe, and his Nigerian parents moved him to England. So Canada was probably low on his radar, but definitely him, because I think he could have made us something special with the team we got going.
Stuart.
All right, I'm going back quite a bit here, but I'm going with Owen Hargreaves. I think he would have been great for Canada. He would have been the best player if he played with Canada. I understand why he didn't. You get the choice between England in the early 2000s or Canada. It's not that hard of a choice, but I really wish he decided to play with Canada. I think we might be slightly further ahead than where we are right now with the program if someone like him was in there helping drive it forward, but it is what it is. Can't really hold that against them when half of our national team is also players brought from elsewhere.
Jess?
Go ahead, Jess.
I actually don't have an answer for this question. I am obviously familiar with the Canada's men's national team, but I'm not familiar with a lot of players from other teams and leagues that have decided not to play for Canada, so I don't have an answer.
In a lot of cases, you'd probably be better off anyway.
That's heartbreak.
Yeah. Stefan.
I'm torn on this one, but I'm gonna go with. I'll say why I won't go with my first choice. My first choice was Begovic, because he came up through the youth system and then he all of a sudden switched to Bosnia. Talking to some of the members down in Toronto, there's some good reasons why he didn't stay with Canada. And they didn't begrudge him that. So I guess I can't begrudge him that. But the real one is Jonathan de Guzman, not because he made the choice, but how. He did at a Canada game in Toronto, wearing Canada gear and saying, I'm going to go play for Holland over Canada. And to me, it was like, no, you keep your mouth shut. You get out of that Canada gear. You dress normally, and then you say that. You don't say, I'm going to play for another country while wearing the country you rejected's clothes. It's one of those things.
Now, I know it's a bit of a perhaps touchier. I can't find the word, but or controversial to be asking Ben for an answer, but I don't know if you'd like to.
Yeah, no, I have no problem answering. From a player's perspective, I think I certainly understand why someone would choose to go in another direction, especially someone like Jonathan Guzman or Owen Hargreaves, who, they're playing for a country that's going to the World Cup and competing consistently. And then on the other side of things, as a Canadian and someone who's representing Canada, was one of, if not the proudest moments of my life. So at the same time, I'm like, if you if you want to go elsewhere, then go for it. I want people representing Canada that are proud each and every time they get to wear the shirt, and that there's no other option for them, because that's at the end of the day, as Canadians, we don't want to be anyone's second choice. I don't think so. I want guys wearing the shirt that genuinely want to be there.
And as fans, we could not agree more.
Exactly.
So, Stuart, I'll get you to start this one. Let's say the Canadian men's national team qualifies for a World Cup. Okay, never mind 2026, but they just qualify. So they're going to be grouped with 3 other countries. So what would be your dream group for them? What are the other 3 countries?
All right, so I think you have to put the U.S. in there because they're our biggest rivals, and it would just be incredible to play them in the World Cup. I think you got to have a club from probably UEFA in there somewhere, maybe the likes of an England or Spain, or I would maybe put France because they're just at the top of their game right now. And for selfish reasons, I'm putting Scotland in there because if Scotland's in their group, then it means that Scotland qualified for the World Cup, which never happened. So that would be my choice.
It also means Canada's guaranteed 3 points.
My heart, you're hurting me here, Ben. No, those would be my 3.
Dude, I hate to break it to you, but you can't have 2 countries from the same confederation in the group.
Well, they're in my group, so deal with it.
Okay, fair enough. You could go tell dear old Sepp Blatter that.
Look, if you pay the man enough, all right?
Fair enough. You got a point there. Yeah, that spare $500 million you owe me?
Sure. Let me write out a check for you right away. All right. So, Steph, who's in your group?
So I thought of the group, and I said, you know what? We have to advance, but we want to be competitive. So I figured, okay, we'll put Nigeria in there. They tend to be second or just sneak into second. So that's a group we could take. I took a Camel Bowl team, so I'm thinking Peru. And then because it's UEFA, we're going to have it's the World Cup. So Belgium, Canada, Nigeria, and Peru.
Nice. All right. Ben, who's in your group?
I've been trying to come up with something as everyone else has been giving their answers. I would probably go, given the World Cup. I think brings people around the world together like nothing else. So I would definitely go from try and get a team from every continent, and just off the top of my head, I'd also I'd like to see Canada tested up against the best. So I'd take Argentina. I'd like to see them play against Messi if he's still going. England, my parents are both of British heritage, so I think it'd be cool to see that game and be a little bit torn. And then I think I'd take an African team with some star players, maybe like an Ivory Coast back when they had Drogba and Essien, and that type of team. So you get a team from all over the world and see a few star players play against the Canadians.
Nice. Michael.
Yeah, so I don't know if this is my dream. If it was my dream, Canada would beat England. I'm a huge England fan as well as Canada. I'd love to see them play, but England's not in my group. I went a little bit realistic, and I looked at the last World Cup and saw the pots and the seeds. So I went with Poland, Peru, and Iran. It's a team that's realistic. It's a group that's realistic, and a group we could get out of, I think.
Yes.
So if we ever make that you can live in your dream world all you want, but it's a reality that matters. So I'm going realistic with this group, and once we get to the World Cup, this is our group. We may get knocked out by England later on.
All right, Jessica.
US and England. I think that Canada would do well with US. I know with they have, I think, had some games, and those are pretty good matches. England, and I have no idea who my last pick would be in the group.
Random one.
Peru.
Australia.
Madagascar.
That's a good one too. Australia's a good one too.
All right. Next one is for Ben specifically. So, was there any goal that you've scored that kind of stands out or perhaps was a favorite? And the second part to it is, was there also a stadium that you really enjoyed playing in?
I'll answer the stadium one first because that's an easy one for me. The previously mentioned friendly against Scotland with Canada at Easter Road in Edinburgh was especially significant for me because my mom hasn't had a whole lot of opportunities to see me play professionally until last year, I guess, going to Pacific. But before that, she hadn't seen me play too much. And when I found out that I was going to be in the squad for that Scotland game, she booked a flight right away. And it was just kind of a really special moment for her to see all the hard work that I put in, but also all the sacrifices the family have made for my dreams to come true. And so to have her there at that game in that stadium with, I think we can all agree Scottish fans are incredibly passionate and create a great atmosphere. So for my mom to be at that game and see me partaking in that was really special.
That's awesome.
Goal, and I forgot about the goal question.
Your favorite goal that you scored or a memorable one?
Yeah. I think back in my time in Spain, this isn't one goal, it's actually a hat trick, but pump my own tires a little bit here. But my first year in Spain, I was having a tough go of it, learning a new language, living in a new country, and not getting a whole lot of playing time. And so for the first half of the season, it was a real struggle for me. And then kind of finally got my chance just kind of past the midway point of the season, got my first start in months and scored a hat trick. So none of the three goals were particularly memorable individually, but just that game for me was a huge turning point in my career confidence-wise.
Amazing.
It would do it for anybody. No offense. Scoring a hat trick. Yeah, I can take on the world now.
All right. Stuart, I'll get you to start this one. This question comes from Michael's brother, Brendan, his twin. So should Canada consider having just one neutral stadium to play in for its home matches? Like, they tend to say that BMO is unofficially the national stadium, but they also play matches in Montreal and Vancouver. So, should we consider just having one neutral stadium like many other countries do, such as, the stadium in London? If so, where would you build one if it doesn't exist?
All right, so it's kind of a hard question. Basically, what I think should happen is there probably should be, when Canada Soccer gets to where it should be, there probably should be a national stadium, whether it's our Wembley, our Hampden, whatever it is, and that should be the stadium where, you know, the Canada Soccer offices are, where all that kind of stuff takes place. If I were to put that anywhere, it would probably be in Toronto. I grew up in the area, and I know how many people live in and around Toronto that can sell out games, but that would only be used for, in my opinion, competitive matches that are not friendlies. And I think that they should do what Scotland has done, where they have friendly matches and less important qualifying matches played elsewhere around the country. They played them at Tawdry, they played them at Easter Road, as Ben Fisk just mentioned. So I think that's a good way to get other people from around the country involved. Get people in Vancouver to host games. You can have people in Ottawa, Montreal, Halifax. I think it's great that they were going to be playing in Victoria at West Hill Stadium. I think that that's amazing and it needs to happen. But I think if we're going to be hosting a lot of competitive matches in big games, that we should have our own stadium, ideally, in Toronto.
Ideally, we could have a national stadium, Toronto, just because you know how I think. I think logistics, I think numbers. Toronto has the numbers. They have the logistics in place. Take advantage of that situation. But Stu's right on having spreading out the games a bit more. Even if it's the U23 men's, like, let's get these games going. I've always criticized CSA about this, and it falls on deaf ears, and I'm sure a lot of voyageurs do it as well. We need more games. It's help build up the FIFA point rankings. That's how it affects our qualifiers these days and age. But we have to have them because you got to generate interest. You got to let the new Hargreaves, the new Jonathan de Guzmans know you can play for Canada. You do have that option. We have to encourage that. And by not having games every so often in Edmonton or Winnipeg or even Regina, anywhere there's a CanPL team, if you're not willing to have some form of international game there, you will be failing this league and the country. So,
Michael.
So I'm very similar with Stu. I agree moving it around for friendlies and stuff like that. But I think Canada needs a stadium. Other teams need to know where they're going. They need to know, oh, shit, we got to go into the BMO in Toronto. That's important to me, and I think it's important to a lot of people. I know you can look at Canada and be like, it's a big country. That's not fair to maybe fans in Vancouver. But at the end of the day, Toronto will make the sales. And if they're hardcore fans, they'll make the trip. I know it's long and far, but maybe another thing I thought of, is maybe a seasonal thing. The winters in Vancouver aren't as harsh as they are in Toronto. So if there was a big match that needed to be done in the winter, maybe Vancouver. But so ultimately, I say yes, and it should be in Toronto. And it's just a place everywhere in the world knows. You say Canada to someone, no matter where they are, they know Toronto. And I'm also thinking about the players. Ben can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think players would want they want to be familiar with the fields they're playing on. They want to know where they're going. They train, to play, to work. I think if you get a call knowing you have to go to all over the country to play this game, I think a home stadium will be a little bit more comforting for the players.
So, Ben.
I think you guys nailed it. As players, especially for, the most competitive games, I think it's important to have somewhere that you're familiar with and the pitch, the change room, and you when you walk in there, you feel at home. And then for friendly matches throughout the year, I think it's great to spread those out across the country. I think a really cool idea would be to do a tour of the CPL stadiums and do a friendly in each one. Who knows if that's what they had planned starting things off from Victoria, but I think as far as friendly matches do have some importance for FIFA points, but obviously a bit less than an important World Cup qualifier. So I think that would be a cool way to do it.
And
Ben, sorry, Anton. Well, Ben, you're looking at 4 guys who drove down to Toronto in a Fiat to go see Canada play Costa Rica.
So,
But quickly, Michael was talking about the whole winter weather situation. Side note story. The year I moved back to Canada, summer of 99, April 2000, Canada was playing Jamaica in Vancouver. Jamaica had on the long sleeves, the long johns underneath. Canadians, jersey, shorts. It's only 10 degrees. What are you complaining?
I think we could actually use the cold to our advantage a lot more as well. I think scheduling big games in Toronto in January could be a huge advantage.
I was actually thinking that as one of my points. I was thinking, I mean, if we could use the cold to our advantage, if someone knows they have to come to Toronto in like December, January for a big match, I mean, huge.
Yeah.
I mean, that's our advantage. But I mean, Vancouver's not a bad.
Sorry.
Any Canadian who's had to play against Mexico in Mexico will tell you that we should take any little advantage we can possibly get.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Sorry, Michael. All I'm thinking is Rocky when he goes to fight in Russia. That training sequence, running through the snow.
Yeah.
Sorry, Anton.
Okay, I have to agree with everybody. Having a main stadium for the qualifying, but doing the friendlies everywhere around the country. I actually really enjoy going on the road trips to Toronto with everybody that's here when we've gone to see Canada play. So I have to agree with everybody.
I'll tell 2 things. If the stars aligned and I had a magic wand and all the right pieces were in place, so to say, logistically, I would stick the home stadium like a neutral ground stadium in the middle of the country, so it's equidistant from the coast, right? But
So you'd be in Winnipeg.
So realistically, I mean, your answers are correct. I mean, Toronto right now is like one of the main home stays. As Ben and a few of you pointed out, it's a place you want it to feel like home. And secondly, that match that took place, what was it, in Denver, USA and Mexico?
No, Costa Rica. The Snow Bowl?
Yeah, I want that. I want a blizzard match. I want it like 40 below, blizzard, like ice, hail, sleet, the whole thing. Like, anyway.
Anton, do you remember there was one Fury game? It starts to snow. We started chanting "Orange balls, na na na," just because we saw flurries coming down.
Right. Okay. All right, Steph. I'll get you to start this one.
Okay.
So, once the CPL has grown, right? It's at least a year old.
Okay.
But once it's grown over the years, do you think men's national team will begin to feature more CPL-based players rather than Canadians playing elsewhere and around the world?
Yeah. Quite simply, Mustafa talked about this a couple of years ago before we were in the NASL. Was about countries like Honduras, El Salvador, and Costa Rica having a core base of selection in their own league, another level in NASL, another tier in the MLS, and then 1 or 2 in Europe. You have to have your base regardless. And the good thing about a base is you can build up that group. So we go 5-10 years down the road. You know what? We may not be the best league in North America. We might be the best feeder league in North America where Champions League's teams come and look at the players in Canada. All of a sudden, in 10 years' time, the dream is that every time a Champions League winner has come to sign a new player, really? From where? Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan? What? That's a place? I would love to see the talking heads go, what the Moose Jaw?
Right. Ben?
I think we need to be realistic with where the CPL is at right now. You're not going to find like a bigger promoter of the league and bigger fan of the league than me. But at the same time, if you think, a winger from the CPL right now is going to get called up over Alphonso Davies, I think that's not realistic at this point in time. But what I do think is realistic is having, whether it be 2, 3, 4, a few CPLers getting called in regularly. Because I genuinely do think that this league is the future of Canadian soccer, and I think that there's a lot of players in this league right now that have a big future with the Canadian national team. So I think you're going to see CPLers trickling in to every camp and being in and around the group, and then the ones that are able to kind of take a step forward from the CPL and move on, whether that's to Europe, MLS. I think then those are the CPLers that are going to be, become kind of more regulars and have a bigger impact on the national team. That's in the short term. In the long term, I think everyone involved with the league's goal would be for the majority of the national team members to be playing in the CPL, because that means that we're up there with the top leagues in CONCACAF, and we've done what we've set out to do.
Stuart.
Yeah, I don't think you'll never see a team that has 11 starters from the CPL, but that's because you're always going to have players that are going to go play in other top leagues around the world. But I would put my money on, by the year 2040, so 20 years from now, I bet you can find a starting 11 where 8, 9, 10, maybe even 11 of the players have played in the CPL at one point or another. And they've either used the CPL as a jumping point off to even better leagues around the world, which is always going to be a better league. But just using Maxim Crepeau, for instance, he was with Impact, wasn't getting games, but he got games with Fury. He got games in Ottawa, and that helped push him onto Vancouver, and now he's playing with the men's national team. And that's where I think CPL will play its biggest role with the Canadian men's national team, is having those players, giving them a place to play when they can't play at bigger clubs, or as a stepping stone before they get to bigger clubs. But to build on what Ben said, I think you definitely will see a time when you have a handful of starters in a national team that currently play for the men's national team and for the CPL.
Michael.
Yeah, Steph kind of said it, and I said it when we did our podcast on the CPL. I said one of the reasons this league is huge is because this is what Canada needs to be a competitive team in the world. That's because we don't really have a core. All of our players are playing all over the place, even in the MLS. When you look at our starting 11, we maybe have 3 or 4 in the starting 11 that actually play in the MLS, and then the rest are Europe or wherever they are. Cavallini was in Mexico for so long. So my answer to the question is yes and no. I think the CPL will make us a core. I think you'll see MLS players not necessarily get drowned out, but I think it'll be more competitive for them with CPL. And we'll get a core. We'll have a system in Canada. And then you'll have players like Davies and David come in and really flare out the team and make it something special.
Jessica.
I have to agree with Michael and Stefan. I see this as a starting point for players and potentially moving on to the bigger leagues and having not all starting 11, but some of the CPL players playing for the national.
All right. So this is the last 2 questions, but this is the final one specifically for Ben. And thank you so much for graciously doing this. We really appreciate it. So this one's a fun one. Name which derby you would love to be a part of, and which side would you choose?
I think I've got 2 answers. If you had asked me this 2 months ago, my answer would have been Boca Juniors River Plate. I think it'd be, as far as atmospheres go, I don't think there's a better one on the planet. So I think that would be
for security.
Yeah, well, those are some intangibles we'd have to look at. But and then my second one, which again, given my current employment situation, I think playing in the Madrid derby would be pretty incredible. Obviously, wearing the rojiblancos of Atletico Madrid, I think would be pretty cool. And just everything the club stands for, from just a hard work, humility, playing with heart, every minute of every game, I think is something that really speaks to my values as well, and I think that'd be very cool.
Right on.
Cool.
Okay, last question of the day. Thank you, panel and Ben, for joining in. So, Michael, I'll get you to start off, and this one comes from Alex, who is someone I mentioned when it comes to Voyageurs who have been supporting Canada from like 20.
Oh, Jumbo Al?
years ago. No, Alex Ho.
Yeah, Jumbo Al.
Oh, is that his nickname? I had
That's
no idea.
his Voyageur handle. Come on! Gotta get back on this stuff, Anton. Did I not teach you properly?
He's from Edinburgh, and he's a Hearts fan, and the Hearts nickname is Jambo, so that's why he's called Jambo.
Oh.
And he's a Charlton Athletic fan in the English League.
Jeez, the host is getting schooled today. All right. So,
Hey, I thought it was all the time.
that's true. You learn something every day. So, Michael, who would you rather have on your side? This one's really fun. Who would you rather have on your side in a bar fight? Would it be Milan Borjan or Lucas Cavallini?
So before I answer this, I just want to say I definitely thought this was Steph's question. I lucked out this one.
Yes.
I just want to know
what was my question.
I just want to know how come I'm not one of the options. So what's this about?
When you meet Alex, you can ask him. He'll be there for sure.
Funny enough, if you were an option, Ben, you were definitely my one. But I'm going with Borjan. That guy's some heat. That is a fire dude. He is an angry man. I remember watching him when we went to BMO to play the States, and we won that game. I think it was in the last 5 minutes. He was losing it, and he was yelling at the ball boys to go hide the ball. And if the ball boys was looking at him, and he's yelling, and I'm like down at the end of the corner, and Borjan's in his net, just go. And I'm like, what is happening? And the kid just starts throwing the ball over the stands. That absolutely killed me. That dude is a big boy, and he has some heat. And he plays in Europe, and so he probably deals with a lot of crap over there, I'm sure. So
Red Star.
Exactly. He does not have easy games there. So I'm definitely going with him.
All right. Stuart.
All right, so actually my player and my reason was just mentioned. I'd go for Milan, and that's simply because if you've ever seen what goes on at Red Star Belgrade, it is mental. Those players to get out to the pitch have to go through an underground tunnel, and it's all spray painted all the way down the side. I don't want to call it graffiti because I'm pretty sure, they had people put it there. But it's literally it's armed guards with machine guns. It's police the entire way down. And when you come out, like I've been to Old Firm games, and the videos I've seen from what happens at just an average game for Red Star Belgrade is ridiculous. I'm talking two flares for every person in the stadium. There's flags, there's chanting. It's so intimidating. So I think the fact that he can go out there and be a success in that type of atmosphere means that he would also kick ass in a bar fight.
Jessica.
I'm going with what Stuart and Michael have said. So my answer is the exact same as theirs.
Okay. So 3 for Milan. Stefan.
I was going to go with Cavallini, the Italian name, being in Montreal, but then I realized a keeper knows how to read the fight, knows how to read the game, and knows when to strike. So I went more the fighting aspect versus where they've played. Because if Borjan's going to throw a punch, it's going to connect. It's just going to go right down. It's going to be full force. It's going to be respect my authority. The fight's over. It's going to be that knockout go. Cavallini, it'll be a death by 1,000 cuts, but Borjan will be just one punch knockout.
And finally, Ben, do you have a pick?
I mean, I don't think I'm the type of guy to get myself in a situation I need that I can't handle myself in. But if I did happen to fall into that situation, I think I'd have to go with Boyan as well. Also for the goalkeeper factor, like Stefan, but more for the crazy factor that the goalkeeper position brings. I think. In a bar fight, you need a guy on your side that strikes a bit of fear in the opposition. So I'm going with the crazy goalkeeper.
Wow, Milan Borjan with 5 votes right across the board, and I think
Sorry, Lucas.
I was gonna say Lucas was gonna be my choice because he's my Canadian greatest player of all time. He's my favorite. And on top of that, Alex, when he messaged me his questions, including this one, he said, well, there's a reason why Cavallini is nicknamed the Tank. So I thought, okay, I thought that'd be a pretty cool reason. Anyway, that concludes episode 4 on Boots and Scarves, the Canadian men's national team edition, featuring our very first guest, Ben Fisk. Thank you so much for joining in. Yes, clap it up. There you go.
Thanks for having me, guys. That was a lot of fun. And thanks for having me for the trivia night the other day as well, Stefan.
Yeah, we're gonna have something coming up. Keep posted. I made a few mistakes, and right now I'm kind of kicking myself because I realized the answer at 4:00 this morning, and I'm kind of disappointed I didn't know the answer the first time around.
So that's true. Look out for Bytown Boys on Twitter and on Facebook. Facebook, we normally use it to announce anything podcast related, or now that Stefan's got these trivia nights going. Also look out for Michael McCall on his YouTube channel. Stuart, was there anything else you wanted to plug in before we sign off?
No, just find us on Twitter at Bytown Boys. You can find this podcast has its own Twitter page at Boots and Scarves. Our Facebook group is very active. We have a Facebook page. Obviously, this podcast is for the Bytown Boys, by the Bytown Boys, and Ben Fisk today. We hope to have other guests on soon, but I'll hand it back to the MC, Anton.
Any last words there, Jessica?
Nope, everything has been covered.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. Thank you to Ben. I'm at a loss for words, man. It's a very historical moment for us. When we were, Stefan's first apartment, we would just chill in his garage recording episodes. You know what I mean? And now look at us, doing recorded Zoom sessions, and we get a really cool guest who's now a part of Atletico Ottawa, Ben Fisk. Once again, thank you guys so much. This is Boots and Scarves, episode 4, signing off.
Cheers, guys. Take care.